Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 17 of the Yamaha Virago Cafe Racer project. My name is Scott McCutcheon of Sovereign Studios. Thanks for tuning in. Today, this episode is going to be short and sweet, real quick. We are going to look at ignition parts, specifically the ignition coils, as well as the electronic ignition control module. We're just basically going to get those installed and get them ready so that they can be wired up for the wiring harness. So let's take a look at what we need to do. Alright, so these are the ignition coils. I believe these are the original coils, like the stock OEM coils that came on this Virago. If that's the case, they may be non-functional, but I'm going to work under the assumption that these are still good, and we're going to go ahead and pop them back in and hope that they still work. I've never tested them, don't know, but should be able to find out. The other piece is this, the ignition control module. We'll just get this mounted up and installed. You can see it's basically got two plugs. Not much to it. It's just the computer chip basically that does the timing and stuff for the ignition. But you'll see that there's a plug on the wiring harness for one of them plugged in here. The other side, I got to go look at the wiring diagram again, but I believe it's this. Wait, no, it's this side. So it comes from the stator that's inside here. Get routed up this way and plugged in there. And just plugged in there. So we'll get this plugged in today, I think, and then we'll be able to get the other plug in when we do the wiring harness. But this is real simple to do. You'll see that it basically just mounts in right here. Real easy. I'll go grab one of these things here. That was easy, right? Now, as for this wire, again, this is down to the stator. So the stator sits back in here, and basically the rotation of the engine helps generate power that it sends to the voltage regulator, which sends it back up to the battery and lets the battery charge and helps power up all these DC circuits and stuff. This piece of the voltage regulator plugs directly into the wiring harness. So we're going to set this aside for now. But then you'll notice we have this wire that's going to come up here and plug into this guy. Now, as far as how he gets down here, you'll see that the frame has these clips, kinda. They can be bent in and out of place. And that's where we'll put the wiring for now. We'll have to pick them back up so we can get this part in maybe, but that's pretty much that. Clamp this wire here. And then there's one more back here. It's kind of hard to reach without a true screwdriver. Alright, and that gives it a nice tight routing along the frame to make sure that plug stays in place. Pretty good. Now the other plug for the stator, this right here is one that I had to kind of break when I was doing painting. It looks like a grounding wire, this piece right here, but I'm not exactly sure what it's for yet. I gotta go look at the wiring diagram again to see why this exists. But it was grounded right here using a little eyelet hook thing, which I guess I'll re-add in the future. But this little 3-pin plug meets up with the voltage regulator here, so go ahead and get that in there, and then we'll make sure it gets tucked back behind this thing, so that it's hidden and protected. And that should do a pretty good job of that right there. And then, like I said, this one just plugs into the wiring harness. We'll jam it up over here somewhere, and that'll be fine. We'll want to seat these wires as much as possible, especially under the tank, so that they're not so exposed. Kind of like that. I'll get that grounding wire in there later. That was easy. So let's go ahead and do the ignition coils. So the coils themselves are pretty simple. You'll see there's really only 2 bolts, and then you'll notice that each one is different in terms of the length of the cable there. Obviously it's so that one of them is for the front cylinder, while one of them is for the rear. It looks like these are 10mm nuts here. So, the trick with these guys, of course these have 2-prong plugs. They're going to go plugged into the wiring harness right here. You know, which is which. I mean, this is red and orange, the other one's red and gray. Which I guess we're going to have to look up in the manual, because that's both red and orange. So I'm not really sure which one's which just yet. But in terms of plugging them in directly to the spark plugs, it should be obvious. So here's their mounting location, right up in here. These 2 holes on either side of this bracket. And these things actually mount on the inside. So pull the nut and the lock washer, and then what you'll do is you'll slide them in place like this, so that the spark plug boot comes up and out, and then the piece itself mounts just like that. Go ahead and get those hand tightened, and then of course you'll see that you can just press those in place now. And that's good. That looks good to me. So you pretty much do the same thing for the other one, although this side is slightly more complicated due to the length. You'll have to route this guy up through these big clamps here. You'll see these clamps hanging off the frame, That's what'll keep this cable up and out of the way. It would appear as though this one is missing the lock washer. Let me see if I can't find another one real fast. There we go. Another little lock washer. Alright, and then same deal with this guy. Feed it on up through there. Make sure you get the electrical connector to slide in there as well, because we want to be able to actually plug it in. Right, and then finally make sure that the cable itself is hooked up in these clamps, and that way now it can just do that. Easy peasy, right? Soon we'll worry about actually getting the harnesses plugged in like that, but since we're not exactly certain of which plug is which yet, we'll figure that out when we're ready to actually install the whole harness. But should be good to go. Alright. Doesn't look too bad. They're well protected there. Moderately well protected, anyway. And I think that'll cover it for the ignition stuff that we're going to look at today. Okay, well that's pretty much going to wrap up episode 17. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button or subscribe to my channel. Maybe go check out my video game, Ethereal Legends, on Steam. An action RPG if you're into Dark Souls, that sort of thing. I'm glad we got those ignition pieces put in. They're important parts, so dedicate a whole video to that, even if it's short and sweet. In the next video, man, we're getting close. We're getting ready to really just start wiring. So in the next video, I think we're going to be looking at actually doing the rest of the wiring. So we're probably going to, with any luck, get the battery box put together. And I'm debating on whether or not I want to try making it myself, because I probably could cut one up and weld it together. Part of me is just debating on buying one, since the craftsmanship would probably be better, but it would also probably be lighter than what I would make as well in terms of weight. So I might just buy one if I can find a decent one. Otherwise, we're going to make it. So, but that'll probably be, if not this next weekend, maybe the weekend after. I'm not really sure. So, hopefully we'll get to it soon. But next episode, battery. And then we'll start doing the wiring harness and everything like that. So, we're getting close. Alright, catch up with you guys soon.